I'm getting into it. So we are going to chat about, whoopsie daisies, ratios today. So at this point, you can raise your hands. Does anyone want to tell me, or can anyone tell me what a ratio is? You can put it in the chat as well if you don't want to raise your hand. But what is a ratio? No one, grade 8s. Okay. Well, I shall take the lead here. If you want to add to what I'm saying, then
Philip, sorry, it's just I see Philip there has said something. Blessed said wait, maybe Blessed will come up with something. Yeah, must raise your hands though. Teacher Sam can see.
Yes, please. So Philip's put something there on the chat that says ratio is something against another, like 1:3, which is a really good example that we have been given there. So a ratio is basically us comparing two values. So it is a comparison between two values with the same unit. Now that same unit is quite important because when we get to rate, that's when we start working with different units. So comparison between two or more values with the same unit. Oops. So if we take Philip's example there, just to sort of expand on what I mean by the same unit. If we have the ratio 1:3, we can't have 1 liter to 3 kilograms. That is not the same unit. We want these units to be the same. So if I had 1 liter to 3 liters, I'm comparing the same unit, and so I have a ratio. The reason this is important is because as Philip has already told us, when we write a ratio, we don't actually ever use units. And so it is implied that the units are exactly the same. We don't want to compare things with different units, otherwise we're going to get ourselves confused. And so very importantly, a ratio is a comparison between two or more values with the same unit. If our units are not the same, we will need to convert, and we'll have a look at some examples as we go along. But basically, you are comparing values. Ratios come in when we're dividing up things. So let's say, for example, no, I can't think of it. Let's say, for example, you have a pizza and you want to share the pizza in a specific ratio with you and your friends. It allows us to divide up a quantity in a certain way, but that quantity has the same value. Alrighty, so excuse me. Another important point of a ratio, as Kutsal said, is that when we write down a ratio, when we give a ratio, when we work out a ratio, we don't ever want to have decimals or fractions. If we do, it becomes a lot harder to understand what's going on. And so what we need to do is remember that our ratio should always involve natural numbers or positive whole numbers. Exactly like Philip's example that we were given here. Excuse me. Alrighty, so if you want to take a screenshot of that, please do, but we're going to have a look at some examples. So a ratio is the comparison between two or more values with the same unit. We are comparing values. Right, so just as like a very, let's not say basic example, but just as sort of like a visual representation of ratio. I don't know how many of you drink Oros, but Oros's mixing instructions is exactly the ratio Philip's given us, 1:3. So basically what it's telling us is that for every 1 part of Oros that we mix, we need to have 3 parts of water. Okay, so that's a visual representation of an Oros concentrate. Please remember, no hands until I say so. If we then go a step further and we explore why then the units need to be the same, is because you can be mixing OROS for yourself as an individual, or you could be mixing OROS, say, for example, for an entire sports team. So we could now apply this, or we can make this specific to say that we've got 1 cup of OROS that we need to mix with 3 cups of water. We could apply that exact same ratio to say we've got 1 liter of OROS that we need to mix with 3 liters of water. If you really wanted to be quite difficult, you could say 1 tablespoon of OROS needs to be mixed with 3 tablespoons of water. So what we need to understand is that the reason a ratio A doesn't have units is because the units will always be the same when we're comparing. So cup with cup, liter with liter, tablespoon with tablespoon. And it's giving us instructions, or it's giving us an idea of how we need to separate or split or mix or make whatever it is that we're talking about. So if you have ever worked with like, I never know if it's concrete or cement. I think it's concrete. If you've ever made concrete before, you know that you have to mix your cement, your sand, your water, etc., in a specific ratio. And this is what ratios do for us. All right, so Tyler's asked, isn't a ratio the same as a fraction? They can give us the same information, but a fraction is written with a numerator and a denominator, whereas a ratio is written as a semicolon. So they are similar to each other, but they are not the same. If I ask for a ratio, I expect your answer to have this colon symbol, whereas a fraction, like I say, has a numerator and a denominator. Alrighty, so if you want to take a screenshot of that, please feel free to. If anyone has any questions at this point, you can raise your hand before I move on, just while I'm waiting for people to screenshot. Philip, question?
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, what happens if we're given a decimal in an exam? What do we do exactly?
Okay, so we will chat about that, but essentially what you would want to do is you would want to make it a fraction and then find an LCD, because once you have an LCD, you're able to essentially work with just your numerators. But we will have a look at examples where we have decimals or we have fractions, and how do we deal with that. Okay. Alrighty, guys, so that is in essence what a ratio is. It is comparing two things, excuse me, with the same unit. It tells us how to mix things, it tells us how to divide things up, etc., etc. So let's have a look at some examples as we go along. Kotlelo, okay, you seem to be not connected to audio.
I'm gonna go and just help him now. Hopefully he will see it on the card.
Alrighty, guys, so if we have a look at this again, we've got a picture here and we've got Coke Zeros, 2 SPAR letters. We can see that in total, we have got 6 Coke Zeros and we have got 8 cream sodas, whatever you call them. I don't know, I call them cream sodas. Right, so when we're looking at ratios, order is very important that we write them down. So if I asked you for the ratio of Coke Zero to, and that colon there we say is 2, so Coke Zero to cream soda, we need to write our answer in that exact order. So the Coke Zero was 6 and the cream soda was 8. Now, what we always need to remember is that we always want to simplify our ratios. Okay, much like most things in maths, we always want to make sure that the answer we give is in its simplest form. So if I want to go ahead and simplify this answer, I know that I could divide both of these values by 2, and that will give me the equivalent but simplified ratio of 3 is to 4. Whoops. I don't know what's happening. It gives you exactly the same information. If you go and have a look at the blocks drawn around each of the cool drinks, we've got 3 blocks around the Coke Zero, which is what we simplify the Coke Zero to. And we have got 4 blocks around the cream soda. I don't know why I chose the same color. I'm clearly having a bit of an evening. And we've got 4 blocks around our cream soda, which is what we simplified the cream soda to. So just to recap what I've said, in case we weren't focused, order in which we write our ratios is very, very important. So if I ask you for Coke Zero to cream soda, you write the value for Coke Zero first and then the value for cream soda. We always want to simplify our ratios. That is non-negotiable. You have to do it. And dividing ratios is very similar to simplifying fractions because, as Tyler said earlier, ratios and fractions are similar to each other. They're not the same, but they're very similar. So we work with them in quite similar ways. Right, just to show you what I mean in terms of order. If I had asked you for the ratio of cream soda to Coke Zero, what we then need to bear in mind is that now we've got the cream soda first. So that value for cream soda of 8 must come first in our ratio and then our value of 6. Again, we would simplify this, dividing both of them by 2 to get 4:3. But we are able to simplify our ratios as long as we can divide all of the values in our ratio by the same number. So orders, whoopsie daisies, order that you write your ratios are very important. I'm just going to make a note here. And we always want to simplify our ratios. So in a question, when it tells you in words, write the ratio of this to this, make sure it is in that order. Unfortunately, guys, if you don't put it in the order we have asked you for it, you're going to get it wrong. Okay. Again, I'm going to say here in case you want to screenshot, if anyone has any questions at this point, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to start with quite a few examples now, and hopefully we're going to get the hang of what's going on.
My question is, how do I get that palette right now? It would be good for me to get a palette at this moment. Guys, if you have any questions, just that will continue. Hopefully you took screenshots. Y'all understand. If you don't understand, please ask now, because now we're going to do some examples. So you need to understand this example. Okay, my people. Are y'all cool? GG, you're also good. No one is confused. Okay.
I apologize if you can hear a whole bunch of music going on outside. Clearly someone's decided that it is not Monday, it's actually like a Saturday because someone's having a fat party outside. So I apologize if you can hear anything.
No, actually, it's not loud. Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just go shout. Alrighty, so let us have a look at some examples. Review. So what we want to do in our first example is we want to simplify the following ratios. Now I've just got a question of how, or I have just gotten a question of how do we simplify ratios or calculate ratios using a calculator. Again, guys, because ratios and fractions are quite similar, you can essentially type it in as a fraction. You just need to remember to write it as a ratio. So I'll explain that now as we go along. So our first example is simplifying the ratio of 9:21. So what we always want to ask ourselves is, what can we divide into both of those numbers? So quickly on the chat, what can I divide into both 9 and 21? I've asked a very specific question. Let's try and remember what I've asked. Well done, very nice, guys. We can divide both of these by 3. So if I divide 9 by 3, I'm sorry, this isn't a very aggressively thick pen, but anyways, and 21 by 3, we are able to simplify our ratio. So when I divide 9 by 3, I get 3. And when I divide 21 by 3, I get 7. Now I can't simplify that any further. So as someone had said there on the chat, our simplified ratio is 3 is to 7. Now, importantly, we've left it as a ratio because it told us to simplify the ratio. But if we're feeling a bit stuck, we can use our calculator. So if you're going to use a calculator, this is how you would do it. I don't have my calculator with me, unfortunately, so we're just going to have to do this. On your calculator, you would type in as a fraction 9 over 21. And your calculator would give you 3 over 7. Now, as you can see, those answers have a very strong relation to each other. One's a ratio, one's a fraction. And so what you need to remember is that once you've got the fraction, you need to write it as a ratio. And that will always be written as your numerator's value first to the denominator's value second. So here we will have 3 is to 7. So you can use your calculator to do the division essentially, or to work with it as a fraction. But remember, it is a ratio. So remember to write it as 1. All right. Excuse me. Just quickly, Villa, I think you're asking about the screenshots. Once you said print screen, you actually need to paste that onto like a Word document or something. Otherwise, every time you print screen, it's just going to replace the image. So I would do what Yolanda said there. Just take pictures on a phone or on another device so that you've got those screenshots. Alrighty, grade 8. So I want you to try B for me. The ratio is 20 to 32. I want you to simplify that for me. You can put your answers in on the chat. I'll ask for hands in a second or two, but I want you to try it first. 20 to 32. Oh. Remember, we always want it as simple as possible. So once you've simplified, double check whether or not you can divide your values again. Because if it isn't as simple as possible, then unfortunately, again, you haven't fully simplified. Right, would anyone like to raise their hand to try and give me an answer here? Okay, Vele, what can we do here to simplify?
I said 20 divided by 4 is equal to 6, and 32 divided by 4 is equal to 9.
Okay, so let's just double check our division. I agree with the dividing by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And then 32 divided by 4 is 8. So just make sure you're doing your division correctly, but very nicely done on recognizing that we must divide by 4. And so guys, our simplified ratio is 5 is to 8. Well done.
Okay.
Just sorry, I'm going to take a tangent. Someone here has their hand up of 234766605. Please let us know what your name is, so that we can change that.
My name is Ribuya.
Yolanda, did you get it?
Can you please say that again? Sorry.
Ribuya.
Rivuya.
Yes.
Revuya. Okay, got it. Revuya, apologies if I didn't spell it correctly, but I think that's how it's spelled.
Otherwise, just pop it in the chat for us.
Yes.
Okay, Ravuya, did you want to answer? Did you have a question? What's up? Or
Well,
did you want us to change your own name?
I got the same answer as Vele.
Good, well done.
Done. Well done.
Okay, guys, so we divided both of them by 4 and we've simplified our ratio. Right, so I want you to try question C for me. I'm just going to leave the first 2 up so that you can see what we were doing. Question C has 3 numbers now. So what you need to be careful of is that we want to divide all 3 of those by the same value. So your ratio is 12 is to 16 is to 4. We want to divide all of those by the same value. So give it a try. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, and then I'll go back for you guys to screenshot just now. And like Tyler's done, you're welcome to pop your answers on the chat when you have one.
Let's go, Reese. I see you. Can do this. Hey, Ritumetse. Oh, some of them are putting answers already. Let's go, guys. Let's go, my people.
I'm just going to remind you again, guys, make sure it is simplified. If it isn't simplified, you will not get full marks for it, and we don't want to lose marks for silly reasons. Remember, your ratio needs to have the colon, so the 2 dots in between. People are behaving like chaos outside. Alrighty, who would like to raise their hand to give me an answer? Nice, guys. All right, Tyler, do you want to give me an answer here?
Yes, ma'am. So,
Okay.
ma'am, basically what you do is you divide each number by 4. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1.
Excellent, well done. So guys, exactly. All of these numbers can be divided by 4, and so we get a simplified ratio of 3 is to 4 is to 1. Again, remember that semicolon, so remember the 2 dots in between each of your numbers. That is how we write a ratio. And this also sort of goes back to the question of, are ratios and fractions the same? No, they are similar, but they are not the same. Here we're able to compare 3 values. I can compare 7 values in a ratio if I want. A fraction can only compare 2. And so whilst similar to each other, not exactly the same. And we need to bear that in mind. Right, I'm going to make those a bit smaller for you to screenshot. Whoopsie daisies. Oh, gosh. And then I think we'll take a brain break before we have a look at the next one, because the next one goes back to what we were talking about earlier about our units needing to be the same. I'm just waiting.
Is that a question? Sorry, Teacher Sam.
No,
I
no.
see the hand is up. Vele, I've unmuted you on my side. I have a question.
If I got a different answer, is it still correct?
No.
Your answer needs to be 3 is to 4 is to 1. What answer did you get?
I got 6 is to 8 is to 2.
Okay, so all of those can be divided by 2 again. So you need to divide it by 2 again. So 6 divided by 2 will give you the 3. The 8 divided by 2 will give you the 4. And the 2 divided by 2 will give you the 1. So you need to do the next division.
Okay.
Okay. And guys, that's a really good point to make. If you got 6 is to 8 is to 2, you're on the right track, but all of those can be divided by 2 again. So keep dividing and keep simplifying until you can't anymore. Alrighty, I'm hoping you've all taken your screenshots. Sankelo, do you have a question?
I also got the same answer as Veli. Must I
Okay.
simplify?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Righty, guys, let's have a bit of a brain break. You guys have done well thus far. We'll get there. There we go. Right, so our brain break's a little bit different today. I felt like mixing it up. Our brain break is essentially riddles, and I'm horrible at riddles, so I'd like to see how well you guys do here.
Yeah.
You've got your math joke.
I'm so
And you've
happy.
got-
Wait, I'm taking a screen of the best joke, guys. Boys, I love it. I just love it. Sorry. Yes, we can continue. Sorry.
Okay, I'm hoping we all get the maths joke. If we don't, it says because you're supposed to get 3 squared meals a day, that's why 7, 8's the number 9. And if you think about number 9, 3 squared is equal to 9. So eating 3 squared, you're getting 3 squared meals a day. Silly. Alrighty. So your brain break are some riddles. You've got 5 of them there. You can put them in the chat. I think for this one, you want to raise your hands when you've got one of them. You can raise your hands and we'll do it like that. So have a read, have a think. Can anyone get any of those riddles? Like I say, I'm not very good at riddles, but let's see how we go. Obviously, I know the answers to these because I know I'm not good at them. So.
Let's go, yo. Hey, let me entertain you by reading them, okay? So let's listen up. Number 1, I belong in the month of December, but not in any other month. I am not a holiday. What am I? Something that belongs in the month of December, but not in any other month, and also not a holiday.
I don't know what happened. I apologize.
Let's think, my people. Let's go. Oh, let's go. For number 1, it's not summer. Definitely not summer.
Summer
And
happens
guys-
over more than 1 month.
Yeah. And guys, you are allowed to jump also to number 2 or to 3 or to 4 if you don't know number 1, okay? So definitely we already said that it's not a summer. It cannot be a birthday. The reason it's not summer is because summer starts in depending on which country you're at. So summer starts actually in September here or November, it doesn't matter. It's not a birthday because anyone can have a birthday. It's not Christmas. Yay! Jamela got it. Yes, my people, it's the letter D. So let's move on. Anyone who has number 2 or number 3, number 4, please remember to like label them so we can see that you got them. Okay. Whoever said, I think it's Princess, said letter, nope, for number 2 is not. So I'm gonna read number 2 for you. I help you from head to toe. The more I work, the smaller I grow. What am I? I help you from head to toe. The more I work, the smaller I grow. What am I? Oh,
Nice, Lina
I think
Mandla,
the
well
first person
done.
to get this one is Lina Mandla. Well done, Jamela. Well done. Yes, anyone who said soap, well done. Let's move on number 3. You are doing good at these things. You're doing better than I am. I didn't even know myself. Number 3 says, what can be seen once, in a minute, twice, in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? Okay, so my people, we're done with soap. So people got it already for number 2. So we're now on number 3. What can be seen once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years?
Nice, Bele.
Oh, did they get it right? I was still
Yeah.
going to go and check.
So Bele was the first one.
Oh my word. Well done, my people. Y'all are nailing this. Let's move on quickly. Our time is running out. So we are on number 4. I am not
Yeah.
alive, but I have 5 fingers. Anyone got it yet?
Oh, fancy, nice.
Well done. So guys, Jamila got it. It's glove. Well done. Y'all are taking notes, right? Just so that you can take a screenshot and you can have fun with your siblings or with anyone at school also. Number 5, okay? Remember, ooh, did someone get it right also? Yeah, fast. I still need to look at answers. Wait, number 5? Oh, no, number 5, no one get it right yet. Yes, Jamila, I did. Woo, guys, Jamila is our stars of riddles. So, Jamila, you're a star of riddles. Definitely number 5.
Well done.
Well done, my people. Y'all did really well.
You guys
We
are
can
much
do
better
that
at this than I am.
Yeah, me too. I had to check the answers every single time.
Well
Well
done,
done,
guys.
my people.
Okay, so that was just something fun to take a little break, but we're going to carry on with some ratios now. So we're going to go back to question D eventually, which is this ratio of 36 minutes to 1 hour. Now, what we need to be careful of is that, remember, my definition of ratio was that units must be the same. Excuse my sausage fingers there in the camera, but anyways. And so what that means is that we need to convert one of these units so that our units are the same. Now, my advice is always convert the bigger unit to the smaller unit. Mostly because bigger units to smaller units will avoid decimals and fractions. And as we said earlier, we never want to have decimals or fractions in our ratios. And so if we convert so that we already don't have, that makes our life easier. So in this case, our bigger unit that we want to convert is the hour. Now, what we need to remember is that we have got 60 minutes in 1 hour. And so to convert the hour to minutes, I will have, something is going on here, 36 minutes to 60 minutes. And now what I have done by converting is I have made the units the same. And so this is why in ratios, we don't actually have units because they're the same. So now I know both of these are in minutes. So I want you guys to try and simplify for me the ratio 36 is to 60 or 36 to 60. So we converted to make our units the same. And now we want to simplify it. Guys, remember, you need to keep simplifying until you can't anymore. No. Good, guys. Keep your answers coming. All right, anyone want to raise their hand to give us an answer here? Sorry, I'm now just having a bit of a panic moment. Give me 2 seconds. Right, Jacinta. There we go.
Ma'am, I say 36 divided by 12 will give me 3. And then 60 divided by 12 will give me 5. So my answer is 3 to 5.
Perfect. Well done. Okay, guys, so exactly. If we divide both of those by 12, we have simplified our ratio. Now, I quickly just want to take a step back and say, okay, well, what if you'd only divided by 6? 36 divided by 6 would be 6, and 60 divided by 6 is 10. Now, we can see that that can be simplified further. I would still need to do a second division by 2 in order to get my simplified ratio. Now, 6 times 2 is 12, so it all works out in the end, but just remember to keep simplifying until you can't anymore, right? That is super, super important. So I'll stop here in case you need to take a screenshot of that, and then we're going to have a look at another example. But importantly here, the takeaway is that you need to have your units the same. Right, I'm hoping we've got those screenshots, guys. Whoops. Another important part of ratios is that we need to be able to divide a quantity or a value that we're given according to a ratio. So here, we have told you to divide 250 Rand in the ratio 2:3. So you can almost think of this as like, I don't know, you and a sibling or you and a cousin are going to split up this 250 Rand in a given ratio. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So what I want to start off by explaining is a visual representation of this. So we've got 2 parts for one person, and another person is going to get 3 parts of our ratio. So there's our ratio 2:3. Now we know that we have to split 250 Rand into that ratio. So somehow I need to take 250 Rand and split it amongst those 5 blocks. And this is sort of where our method comes into of why we work with ratios like this. We know from this information, because I'm splitting my 250 Rand across 5 blocks, that 5 blocks or 5 whatever you want is equal to 250 Rand. Which means that every one of these blocks must be equal to 50 Rand. Sure, that was mental math. That took way too long. So every little block that I've drawn here is a value of 50 Rand. And because I now know that, it becomes very easy to say what this ratio is. 2 blocks we can see is 100 Rand. 3 blocks we can see is 150 Rand. Come on. Oy vey. Oy vey. Sorry, guys. Let me just close that. Is 150 Rand. And so that we can see we have split our ratio of 250 Rand into 100 Rand and 150 Rand. Now, you don't have to draw blocks. I find the blocks quite useful. I quite like drawing blocks for myself. For me, it's just an easier way to work with ratios, but you don't have to. So if you aren't a huge fan of the blocks, which is absolutely fine, no offense taken, I'm just trying to give everyone some options that ratios make sense for them. Another way we can deal with these sorts of questions is we can say, or the first step that we would do is we would add our 2 values in our ratio together, because that represents the total of what I'm working with. So here, 5 represents my total. Once I know how much the total is, I can now take my amount and divide it by that total. So 250 divided by 5 we know is 50. And so now I know that for every 2 parts, I need to multiply by 50 to get my 100, which is the same as what I got previously. And my 3 parts, I times by 50 to get 150. And so my ratio ends up being exactly the same as what I got. I just have chosen not to draw blocks. Now, again, that's not the only way you can do this. This is the beauty of ratios. There's often lots of different ways to do the same thing. Another way you can do this is you can use fractions, because again, remember, like I said, fractions and ratios work hand in hand. So once again, you want to know what your total is, because we need to know the total amount or the total parts that we're working with in order to use a fraction. So we know that we've got 2 parts out of the total 5. That must now be in relation to our 250 Rand. Now this is taking us back to fractions. If you say 2/5 times 250, you get 100 Rand. We also know that we've got the 3 parts out of 5 of the 250 Rand. And if you say 3 over 5 times 250, you get 150 Rand. So in any case that you do this, you are still getting 100 Rand is to 150 Rand as your divided ratio. If that's not the right word, as your ratio divided according. I'm going to start my sentence again. So let me just try. You still get exactly the same division of the amount according to the ratio you were given. So in each case, I got 100 Rand is to 150 Rand. Whether you use blocks, whether you use the blocks without the blocks like we did in the green, or whether you work with fractions, you're going to get your answer. So there's many different ways that you can deal with dividing ratios. You have to decide what works best for you. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And I want you to try question B. You've got 3 different ways that you can do this. Pick the one that you think makes most sense to you and try question B. Let's see if we've got enough time. We should have, but we'll see how we go. If we don't finish, then we'll have a look at this, obviously, on Wednesday. So question B is 750 grams into the ratio 6 is to 7 is to 2. Okay, so remember, a really important part of all 3 of those methods is knowing the total of the values in your ratio. So if you're struggling where to start by adding your 6, your 7, and your 2. And guys, you can always double check yourself, because once you've split up your amounts, if you add them back together, you should get back to your original amount. So here, 100 plus 150 takes you back to 250. So we know we've worked with the correct values here. Oh, sorry. All right, we're starting to get some answers, which is good. Right, just to save some time, I'm going to go through this one. So again, your choice of how you choose to do it. We know that the total that we are working with here is the 6 plus the 7 plus the 2, which gives us 15. So we now want to take our 750 grams and divide it by the total, giving me 50 grams per part. So now I've got 6 parts that I should times by the 50 grams, which gives us 300 grams. 7 parts, which I must times by 50 grams, which gives us 350 grams. And 2 parts, which I must times by 50 grams, which gives me 100 grams. And so my ratio for the 750 grams divided according to what I've given you is 300 grams, excuse me, to 350 grams to 100 grams. Sorry, something just went weird, but anyways. Alrighty, so always know what your total is. And as long as you know what your total is, you should be able to divide a quantity according to a ratio.